And this part is the controversy. As much as I try to skirt around this topic, it does bother me from time to time, not because of the common citizen who is Christian, so much as what happens around me typically has some affectation of very old fashioned puritanical Christianity. And Christianity being the one of two major conversion religions in the world, I see its effect on society, especially in the United States government, where we see classic values being fought all over the United States. And it's very concerning because how do you reconcile the good people versus the religion that affects them? Because it's hard. It's a belief system, and it has wonderful cathartic properties in their daily lives. But on the other side, it has been used by others as a weapon to control, to create universal alignment, because they need that version of reality, because life is such a struggle that without these traditions of control and alignment, then they can only see a cycle of damnation and hell in their lives. And this is the critical aspect of my philosophy towards religion. Because whether it's Christianity or any other religion, what matters at the end of the day is the effect, the consequence of the tradition and the action and the thought process. As I mentioned 2 weeks ago, the challenge becomes, do you become a follower or do you become a questioning experimenter? And what's critical, and I'm on the side of experimentation, is that I don't follow things just because someone else or a society believes it. I must see its effect on the people. Has it become a benefit? Are people suffering from it? Has the organization or belief system done anything to address those who are unseen? And that's something that I don't see addressed enough, is the unseen. I remember watching a documentary on cults and extreme belief, where a number of splinter cults came from the main body of Protestant religion because there's no Catholic order to keep things in line. So to see these cults crop up as a permutation from their belief in Jesus and God, and to see how it functions, how it applies to people around them, I asked myself, can we do more as a Christian society to address those that are unseen, those who are lost? Or do we just respect their boundaries because it's America, land of the free? And this goes back to many years ago, early in my career, especially as working retail, where I noticed that someone was in need in a work parking lot, and someone who was very devout in their faith just left. They didn't even stop to care for those in need. While the rest of us, of various different versions of faith, decided to stay behind and help the one that was in need in that parking lot. And I became very critical of the person who had left. I became critical of their version of Christianity. But that's the thing. It's their version. It's their version of their faith. And that's the reason why I came to my epiphany in the beginning. As much as the loud soapbox declarers of conservative faith want alignment to their belief, they're just being loud over their version of belief. A spiritual leader can evoke their version of belief, but at the end of the day, each person is responsible for their own faith. There is nothing wrong with that person who had left that parking lot that evening not helping that person. It just wasn't factored into their priority for their faith. Sure, they're loud. They can, talk about verses. They can bear the cross. They can put the I love Jesus sticker anywhere. But I don't blame them, because that's their version. That is how they live their faith. That is how they choose to express themselves. We can say that they are representative of the faith. We can say that they are representative of the whole organization, the whole religion, and that many are like them. But that is far from the truth. There are a great many individuals who are of the Christian faith and have done great things on behalf of compassion that are more Buddhist-like in their expression of their Christian faith than the very controlled authoritarian approach that others may have, endorsed. And oddly, this makes exceptions for people who need the corruption of the televangelist approach of Christianity in order to make them better people, which is kind of weird, but that's a different topic. So aside from that, I would not change the heart of these people who believe in their God, because we need more people with a compassionate heart, and that version that they live works to endorse those actions, works to instill, to create structure for them. Similarly, I know that Catholics get flack from the Protestant side of things because, they have pedophile priests and all that, but that's just a part of their organization. That does not mean the people who are Catholics are like that. There are many great Catholic people out there, just like there's great Muslim people out there. But we all like to group everyone together instead of recognizing that each individual is responsible for themselves. And I'm not saying, hate the sin, not the sinner. Like, that has been used against the LGBTQ community quite a lot. What I'm saying is, if you believe there's an infringement upon justice that you see within the organization of your spiritual faith, it needs to be called out. Don't shy away from it. Don't feel like, you can't handle being alone and seeking justice. And if there is ever a question of knowing when you should be compassionate, when you should assert any level of outrage on behalf of justice, a good way to look at it is who is suffering in the now. Who is suffering right now? Where does that suffering come from? Do we just suppress it? Do we leave the door open? Do we care for them? Because I can tell you right now, identity suppression, lifestyle suppression isn't going to work. A person needs to be guided, and not by these camps where you can recondition someone, but a person needs to be able to find a way to discover themselves, to repair what has been damaged, and they need to do it themselves. Self-awareness and self-empowerment comes from the self, not from an external force, not in a need of validation from an external entity. Growing up in a faith system, growing up in a religion, is very helpful to gain initial context in society and existence. But I do encourage people not to limit themselves to that. Yes, you can support the faith system in order to continue the tradition of future generations to value some of the principles endorsed by those faith systems. But I don't endorse people getting trapped by it. You are your own experiences. You are your own principles. You are your own self. This is your boat. This is your ride. And it's your journey to wherever you take it, whether it is predestined or something that you can create for yourself. You are not your church. You are not your congregation. You are not the representation of God. You are just you. And if you ever feel like you need to attribute your actions and your approach because of your faith, because of the scriptures, because of the tradition, that tells more about what you're afraid of accepting. That tells more about what you do not choose to do for yourself and would rather have something else do it for you. And it's not an easy path, honestly. Doing a lot of self-reflection, self-awareness, it's not going to happen overnight. Rome didn't fall or rise within a year, a day. It took hundreds of years. You must be patient with yourself. Self-awareness, self-discovery, self-acceptance is more worthwhile and has been endorsed by other faiths that were not, bound towards obedience. But that's not a position everyone can take. Oftentimes, their journey is their own. Their journey may not lead them to even listening to me talk about this or be convinced. But self-accountability is a very powerful thing. Building your own principles is a very powerful thing. Having your own structure and approach puts you far above many people. People who choose to blindly follow than to really think for themselves, to care for themselves. And I think it's worth trying. It's worth being.